no, he landed.
Hey folks, what makes this toy great? Today we're looking at 1985's Jumpstarter Topspin. And Topspin doesn't make a whole lot of sense in 1985. He doesn't quite fit in with that real world aesthetic of the Season 2 cars and planes. He fits in a lot better probably with the 1987 Technobots that formed Computron. He's some kind of a futuristic jet. But hey, it was 1985. The series was blowing up. They needed to find more toys, so they pulled this off of the Diaclone shelf. And early versions, as you can see in the image here, actually still have a Diaclone sticker with the initials DAR that stand for Diaclone Attack Robo. But what this toy is really about is the gimmick. That's why he's called a jump starter. And you pull him back as a pullback toy. He rolls for a few feet, and then he pops open up onto his feet, at least theoretically. And I say theoretically because Topspin doesn't have a great reputation for sticking the landing. And to help deal with that, he's got this interesting pivoted counterweight on the back of his head that also theoretically should help you fine tune the way he jumps and lands on his feet. Does it really have any influence? I can't say for sure. There's too many variables at play on each roll. But give it a few rolls, and on your fourth or fifth, you're likely to get him standing up. And a minor note is that he's a pretty early example of a stamp showing made in Taiwan. At the time, most of these toys were made in Japan. But what makes this toy interesting to me is a simple and elegant feature of the gear train. So when you pull him back, he's clearly a pullback toy, right? As you pull the wheels back, it's winding up energy into a spring. You can imagine how that works, or maybe you've seen how it works. And then you let him go and he rolls for a few feet. And after a few feet, he springs up. The question is, why does he wait for those few feet and then spring open? And to understand this, let's start by considering what keeps him in the closed position, right? With his legs folded up onto his chest. There's a black hook protruding from his chest that's hooking into a hole on the front of his leg. And that hook naturally seats in the closed position. To release it, I have to push it out of the way with my screwdriver. When I let go, it moves back into the closed position. So what's causing that? Well, there must be some kind of a spring. And for him to roll a few feet and then spring up, there must be something that then pushes that hook into the released open position and overcomes the strength of that spring that tends to be holding it closed. So we'll open him up and I'm going to show you exactly where that's coming from. Disassembly is straightforward. There are only 4 screws on his upper back that need to be removed, and then you can separate the front and back half of the torso. There are 2 more screws towards the bottom that connect the chrome trim to his nose cone. I actually like to remove those as well, just to give me a little more room to work when I'm separating the hips area. And speaking of the hips, they're spring loaded. That's what's controlling the whipping motion that rotates his body to the vertical when he jumps. And from the back, you can see the catch that allows the spring to compress. And here we can see that black hook that protrudes through the front of his chest. And we can also see why it's seated in the closed position normally. It's because it's on this pivoting black lever arm, and there's a spring attached to it that's actually pressed up against the inside back face of his chest. There's an oval shaped receptacle there where the other end of the spring is pressing. And when you reassemble him, you have to press really hard to get the 2 halves of his torso together because that spring is fighting against you. That is the spring we have to overcome in order to initiate the jump. But how is that accomplished, and why is there a delay of several feet of rolling before it's activated? Well, the answer is a gear reduction. So if you remember from school, a small gear driving a big gear is a gear reduction. The small gear has to rotate several times while the big gear might only rotate once. And that's what's happening here. The drive wheels will rotate very quickly, but there's a gear reduction that causes this axle to rotate slowly. Now, if you look at the lever arm, it has that protruding hook that we've been talking about. But on the other end, there's another hook. Why is that also a hook? Well, that has a very specific purpose. Let me show you right now as we wind up the drive wheels. So this is me simulating pulling the car back. Did you catch what happened? Here it is again in slow motion. There's a small paddle or a cam being rotated into a starting position against the inner flat face of that hook. And a slip clutch allows it to stop at that point while the wheels and the mainspring continue to be wound up. This is the beginning of our egg timer that will eventually activate the jump. So now let's see what happens when the wheels are released. And that was a little quick, so let's see it again in slow motion. And that's the secret. So the cam whips around with enough power to slap the hook out of the way, overcoming the strength of the spring and releasing the exterior hook from the leg so that the hips can unwind and Topspin jumps. And that's the answer to why he rolls for a few feet before activating the jump. Now, in the video, it looks a little quick, but that's because the wheels are unloaded. Normally, when he's on the floor, he's overcoming the inertia of his own mass. And in this unloaded example where I'm just holding the wheels and releasing them, everything unspools really quickly. But because of that gear reduction, the cam is rotating around its axis several times slower than the rest of the gear train. That egg timer is what creates the delay. And that slip clutch that allows the starting position to always be in the same spot is why that delay is very consistent. He's always rolling a few feet and then he jumps. So, what makes this toy great? He's the often maligned and underappreciated misfit of year two with an interesting engineering solution to a unique feature that's been seared into your brain, whether you realized it or not. And if you like this sort of thing, I hope you'll take a look at some of the other videos on the channel. We talk about history, engineering details like today's, repair techniques. Say hi in the comments. Let me know if you'd like me to go deeper into the design of this specific gear train. I left a lot of the details out because I wanted to keep the focus on that time delay effect that's of such interest to me. But I'd be happy to attempt to elaborate up to the limits of my knowledge. Or I'll direct you to a video by one of the great science channels who have done breakdowns of gear trains and even pullback toy cars. And as always, I hope you found this information useful, and we'll see you next time.
Action. You got him.